Today on Week in Review, we had the grand opening of the Cassian Regional Hospital, and Terrace finds itself on one of Canada's most livable cities. Hello and thank you for joining us here on Week in Review, where we recap all the news here in the Northwest. Our first story of the day is about BC's new health minister, who was in town last Friday for the name-giving ceremony of the new hospital. But before the ceremony, MLA Josie Osborne stepped into our TV studio for a chat about healthcare in the North. Here's CFTK-TV's Jaylee Matthews with the interview.
So thank you so much for joining me, Minister Osborne. I know this is a relatively new appointment. How has your first couple months as health minister gone?
Well, it's been about 3.5 weeks, in fact, and it's incredible. I am so honored to receive this appointment, and there are a lot of challenges that we're facing, and British Columbians made it really clear to us throughout the election that they expect us to do everything we can to strengthen our public health care and mental health care system, and I'm really looking forward to digging in, and this is my first trip as health minister, so I'm really proud that I've come north and here in some of the more remote parts of British Columbia.
And it's a fun thing, you get to open the new hospital too.
It is. I mean, it's a real honor. I'm obviously building on the incredible work of Minister Adrian Dix before me and everything that people here have done. I know people have been waiting a long time for a new hospital here, and to see that it's doubled in size, that it's going to be able to serve the entire region. I've been hearing stories already from people up north about how much this hospital means.
Absolutely, and I know one of the biggest issues that have been plaguing our region is ER closures and staffing shortages. How is that being addressed?
Well, it is tough, and it's hard on families and people, and we need to have confidence in the healthcare system, in the hospital, and knowing that the emergency room is open. I come from a small town myself, and just imagining having our ER closed is a really difficult thing to do. So it's tough because we are experiencing a global shortage of healthcare workers. But the good news is that we are doing a lot to bring in new doctors, new nurses, healthcare workers into all parts of British Columbia. I'm very determined to tackle this issue around emergency room closures, particularly in rural British Columbia. Coming from rural BC myself, I think that I'll be able to bring a really valuable lens there. But just continuing to do that work, we are really excelling there, but we've got more to do because we want to make sure that healthcare is there for people when they need it and when they need it.
For sure, and I know one of the big barriers, often nurses and doctors, it's cost a lot to go to medical school. Is that one of the things that are being addressed?
Well, you're right. There are costs to that, and there are costs to moving into rural areas, and so providing incentives. So we have incentives for locums to visit rural areas and work there, for nurses and other healthcare workers to do that. That's a really important part of it. Opening British Columbia's first new medical school in 50 years, specifically around family practitioners and building the cadre of family practitioners that we have here in British Columbia. That's all part of it, expanding the medical school at UBC. It's an exciting and really fulfilling career for people I know, and we're going to continue to do everything that we can to support people who choose that career path.
And with that, though it's been open a few weeks now, the official opening of the Cassian Regional Hospital was officially situated, with many in attendance seeing the fruits of their labor. This Friday, it was the gathering to celebrate the opening of the new Cassian Regional Hospital here in Terrace.
You know, it was 2020 when we were over in front of Mills that Minister Dix came up and made the announcement that this facility was going to be started.
And it was also another step closer to reconciliation and recognition for the Kitsum-Kalem and Kitselis nations.
It is most fitting that this step begins with a hospital, a place of healing. Just as this hospital serves to heal the physical wounds of people along the Skeena, it too does this recognition help heal the wounds of our shared history.
The Cassian Regional Hospital symbolizes a commitment of these communities, the First Nations, of people working together to build an incredible facility that is going to serve people from all over the Northwest. It's a real testament to that work, and it's also a testament to a commitment to reconciliation by receiving a Kitsum-Kalem name, having Kitselis here, being all together to receive it and witness the ceremony. But it's about the care that this is going to deliver to the people of the Northwest.
Many showed their appreciation for the Old Mills Memorial Hospital, but always felt as though a new building was a need, starting back about 15 years ago.
Seafoam green paint peeling off the walls, equipment older than me. And I remember thinking to myself, this isn't right. This isn't a place we should be spending our final days.
This was an effort started really in 2010 with a letter to the provincial government at the time. So it's been 14 or 15 years to see this come to fruition. But I'm so proud that our government made the commitment to build this hospital.
And those who spoke had heavy hearts in wake of the passing of former Premier John Horgan, who died last month due to cancer. And Horgan was one of the leaders to accomplish the construction of this new building.
He was wholly dedicated to making government work for all people, for everyday people, and for people across this province. And he was here just a few hundred meters away, of course, to ensure that the replacement of this hospital was a priority for our government.
The Old Mills Memorial Hospital is expected to be demolished sometime in early 2025. From CFTK-TV in Terrace, I'm Damian Smith. And continuing our hospital coverage, we already saw part one, and now here's part two from Jaylene's conversation with Minister Josie Osborne.
What about addressing doctor and nurse burnout?
Yes, that's a serious issue, and workplace conditions are a big part of that. Our healthcare workers go above and beyond each and every day, and certainly during the pandemic, we saw that. We really celebrated the work that was done by healthcare workers, but we have to continue that too. And so addressing those issues around stress, anxiety, fatigue, with bolstering the number of people. And again, we're in this global healthcare worker shortage. So we have to continue to attract, incentivize, bring in new healthcare workers, physicians, nurses, create safe working places, make sure that there are enough people, that roster or complement of people, particularly in a small community where you need the right number of people so that if somebody is sick or somebody goes on vacation, that it doesn't increase the burden on everybody else who is there. So we are using travel nurses as well who will come in and help to alleviate some of that, but we really want to build the local complement because I know rural communities especially want people to live in their community and be part of it, and their kids go to school and they shop locally and they really become part of the community.
Yeah, they do. And so do the family doctors. I know that's another struggle in Terrace is having a family doctor.
Yeah.
Is anything being done to address that?
Yeah, absolutely. And so again, the work to create more doctors through the new medical school and expanded seats at UBC, for example, working with locums to attract them into rural areas in particular to help cover off some of those shifts as we build the complement of doctors. We've attached 900 new family doctors, and we've got about 680,000 people in BC since 2018 that have been attached to a family physician. So there's momentum. We're going in the right direction, but at the end of the day, each and every person who wants that family care or primary care provider, whether it's a doctor or a nurse practitioner, that's their doorway into the medical system, and having that is a really important thing. So that's why we're going to stay very, very focused on that. It's one of my top priorities, certainly as the new health minister, to do everything we can to have those primary care providers in communities across BC.
Interesting, yeah. And I know one thing our local MLA Claire Rote mentioned is that the healthcare system, in her words, struggle with a lot of paperwork. Is that going to be reduced?
Yes, absolutely. Administrative burden is something doctors certainly have made very clear to us is something that they want to reduce, and we're working with them to do that. So we've made a commitment, for example, to reduce or eliminate unnecessary sick notes. So that's something we'll be working on in 2025 and looking at options and working with the doctors to make sure that we do it right, because of course we want to make sure that we are doing it right. But even things like getting rid of fax machines. It's kind of hard to believe in 2024 that we're still using fax machines. But again, working with the doctors, with nurses, with clinics, with the health authorities to reduce that administrative burden is a top priority as well.
Up next, Terrace finds itself as one of Canada's most livable cities. In a release that was sent out last Friday, the Terrace RCMP spoke on how they executed a search warrant last week that led to a big drug bust. And the searched location was on Monroe Street, and the residence was targeted as a part of a drug trafficking investigation. Inside of the residence, the police discovered a fair bit of cash, suspected fentanyl and methamphetamine, several digital scales, weapons such as bear spray, knives, and bats alongside some other trafficking items. 7 adults were also located inside of the residence, but the RCMP did not disclose what happened to them, although they did mention that no charges have been forwarded in this case currently and that the investigation as of right now is still open and ongoing. And in more global and local news, the city of Terrace was able to rank decently high in one of Canada's more important lists. This week, the Globe and Mail officially named their top 100 livable cities around the nation, and lo and behold, spot number 41 sees Terrace, British Columbia on its list.
I think Terrace is an amazing community. And, I think we've in some ways been ignored a bit over the years. And I think, it's just shining a spotlight on us. And kudos to all the people in the community that have been doing work to put Terrace on the map. I think Liz at Community Tourism is doing a great job. The folks of the TDIA, the Downtown Improvement Association, are doing a great job. And I think our staff here at the city are doing a great job.
Seeing that it gained 107 positions over last year's rating, that's pretty phenomenal. And I think people should be really proud. It speaks to the leadership in the community. It speaks to the amenities that are available, whether it's Shames Mountain or whether it's the mountain bike trails or the fishing opportunities.
And for Buyatash and Backrack, it's a nice little headline for the two, who represent the community of around 15,000 people. And Buyatash references the Resource Benefits Alliance, which was announced this past summer that 21 different governments in the Northwest would be allocated $250 million to improve areas of their community. And Terrace was first on that list at just over $34 million.
I think we could always improve, and that should be the goal. It should never be to stay status quo. How much we've grown is great, but I think we need to improve. And I think improving the downtown core is going to continue to help us grow there. And, we've earmarked some of our RBA money for that. So hopefully that will help us along as well. We see some of the improvements of the 4600 block that are happening, and hopefully we'll see more improvements in the downtown core as time goes on.
Now, Backrack believes that this headline can catch a few eyes for Canadians around the country who might want to make the move to Terrace in the near future.
They're looking around at places to move, at places to put down roots, and everything that they hear about a place influences their decision. It's really important that we put out a positive message about the places where we live. That doesn't mean we should ignore the problems, but we have something to be really proud of here in the Northwest, and we should amplify that message.
The top 3 cities on this list were also BC cities, with Victoria as number 3, West Vancouver as number 2, and North Vancouver as number 1. From CFTK-TV, I'm Damian Smith. And the Kasayan Society has put out a release that they intend to operate a temporary winter shelter at their Turning Points Housing Connections on Lake Ellis Avenue. The building is currently home to the Homeless Prevention Program and the Kasayan Administration Office, and the shelter will operate as an overnight-only overflow shelter with 10 beds between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. There will be no day programming provided at the location. The temporary winter shelter program replaces the prior extreme weather shelter program funded by BC Housing, and this temporary 3-month program will begin operation in January of 2025. Now, the Smithers RCMP are once again seeking help from the public and local businesses, but this time they are investigating an incident regarding a stolen car. Last week, a gray Hyundai Tucson got stolen and was then driven erratically by the thief, but police officers eventually arrested the suspect and also recovered the car. Now, the RCMP is seeking out additional information in order to figure out how they should proceed with the investigation going forward, as it is still ongoing. After the break, a petition has been started in honor of a victim of a crash on Highway 37. And welcome back. We now turn to a story about a petition that has been started by the family of one of the victims who was a part of a fatal crash on Highway 37. Here's Jaylee Matthews with a story.
On November 6th of this year, RCMP received a report of a single vehicle rollover on Highway 37 South near Hanson Road. One witness reported seeing the vehicle hydroplane and go off the road before landing upside down, submerged in water. The 2 occupants of the vehicle did not survive the collision. 2 young people died, identified online by their families as Cassidy Malo and Jaden Gray. There was heavy rain that day. 2 years prior, on Friday, March 11, 2022, a different spot on that same highway claimed the lives of 2 young Terrace students, Ashton in grade 4 and Kylie in grade 6, as well as their mother, Elizabeth. In their case, RCMP say the northbound car crossed the center line and collided with the southbound commercial vehicle. Weather conditions were poor. In 2016, a 4-car collision at the Williams Creek Bridge on that highway claimed the life of local teacher Dave O'Brien and injured 3 others. Water pooling was cited as an issue. In 2018 and 2024, resurfacing and paving work was done along the highway. In ICBC's reported crashes on Tableau Public, it's reported there have been 95 crashes along Highway 37A since 2019. Now, family of Cassidy Melo have created a petition in her honor. Cited in the petition's description, which is directed at the Transport Minister, Stephanie Fox, Cassidy's aunt, writes, "In response to frequent tragedies, we seek the installation of adequate barriers, guardrails, and additional preventative measures along the highway." She writes that they believe substantial safety enhancements could eventually deter accidents and save lives. The petition can be accessed via change.org and is linked on CFTK-TV.com. For CFTK-TV News in Terrace, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
And just east of Smithers, those in the Upper Viewmount area will now have access towards high-speed internet, where 153 households in this area can now access healthcare services, job enrollment, and more. This is a part of a $230,000 investment by the Government of BC, originally administered by the Northern Development Initiative Trust. On a broader scale, this is one of many initiatives put on by the province to connect the more remote areas with more internet services. And George Chow, who is the Minister of Citizen Services, said that this new infrastructure will take the town of Smithers one step closer to their goal of connecting all communities in BC to high-speed internet. Now, the seafood capital of the Nass Valley recently got some good news from the federal government, as they've announced that there will be a nearly $20 million investment headed towards the way of Gogolix Harbor. Gingolix is the largest harbor within the Nisga'a Nation, and this investment will see much critical disaster mitigation upgrades realized. The Gingolix breakwater construction project will extend and elevate the existing breakwater infrastructure to fortify the shoreline against major storms and to create a protected channel for boats within the harbor and decrease the rate of silt building up from the Nass River. The government says this will reduce the negative impacts on fish spawning habitats, the surrounding banks, and Indigenous commercial and private boats. Chief Councillor of the Gingolix Village government extended his thanks in a statement and said the harbor is crucial not only as a source of livelihood, but also brings great cultural value to the communities. And the Smithers RCMP has put out a notice that is asking for public help to find a wanted man by the name of Timothy Bakanak. Bakanak is wanted for allegedly causing a crash that resulted in a death as well as a serious injury at the intersection of Highway 16 and 16th Avenue in Smithers back in 2021. Bakanak has been described as a 73-year-old Caucasian man who is 5'7" and weighs around 172 pounds. In unfortunate news, a young girl from Terrace will be spending the holidays away from home as she undergoes chemotherapy. Not long after 5-year-old Marley started kindergarten, her school year was interrupted by a life-changing diagnosis. Young Marley was diagnosed with B-all leukemia and has had to relocate to Vancouver to undergo treatment at the BC Children's Hospital. She's about 3 months into what is expected to be a 6 months to a year of treatment, and her mother Elizabeth says Marley remains in good spirits despite her discomfort. Marley's aunt has now set up a GoFundMe to help support Marley and her family during this time. Anyone who would like to donate can find the page on GoFundMe under the title Marley Marie. Still to come, a new fire chief has been appointed at the Terrace Fire Department. And the current president and CEO of LNG Canada, Jason Klein, will be heading back to Texas this spring. Effective April 1st, Chris Cooper, who is currently LNG Senior Vice President for the Phase 1 pipeline and expansion, will replace Jason Klein as President and Chief Executive Officer of LNG Canada. Cooper has extensive history in leadership in the oil and gas industry and said he is pleased to be continuing the journey with LNG. Klein will continue to work with Shell, but his next placement has not been announced at this time. LNG says they remain on track to ship first cargoes by the middle of 2025. Now, the deputy fire chief in Terrace has now been promoted to chief. Joel Brisson has replaced Chief Chad Cooper, who had been in the role since June of 2023. And Brisson previously worked for the Lacombe Fire Department in Alberta from 2012 to 2020. And in 2020, he joined as a volunteer firefighter with the Terrace Fire Department while working as emergency program coordinator for the Kitsum-Kalem Band. He then started with the City of Terrace as deputy fire chief in October of 2023. In addition to his fire training, Brisson holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and has experience working in the area of mental health and addictions. The City of Terrace says they will aim to fill the deputy fire chief position in the new year. And the City of Terrace is seeking out public opinion on their budget for 2025, so they've made a couple of options available where people can do so. One option is filling out a survey either online on the city's website by printing a paper copy from their website, as well as voicing your opinion at the committee of the whole meeting in January. And the deadline for general feedback is January 14th. And during Saturday afternoon last week, the Terrace RCMP was able to hold their annual Cram a Cruiser charity event, where local citizens would fill up police vehicles with non-perishable donations. Vehicles were placed in the parking lots of stores like Safeway, Save On Foods, and Wholesale Club, with Terrace residents proving to be very generous once again. 5 cruisers in total were able to be filled as part of the event, with over $2,400 being raised. All the items would then be shared between local charities like the Salvation Army, the Terrace Church's Food Bank, as well as Cassan Place. The event even featured appearances from Santa and Safety Bear to help spread the holiday cheer. Now, the RCMP also made sure to thank everyone who helped make the event the success that it was. And in time for the holidays, the Thornhill Fire Department once again put on their yearly display, the Festival of Lights. As part of the festival, the department requested for food and cash donations the past few weeks, where all donations will go to those in need. And the group's ecstatic with this year's results, where they received $2,300 in cash donations, as well as 2,500 pounds of food donations as well. The department thanks supporters like Driving Force, Sight and Sounds, Holiday Inn, Northern Motor Inn, and the Thornhill Firefighters Association. And with that, we leave you with a montage of the parade. And that does it for this week's edition of Week in Review, and this will be our last one for the new year as well. Thank you very much for tuning in, and happy holidays.